Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Salazar. Today, I will be discussing the horrifying show, Haunted. Haunted is a 6-episode Netflix original show about true ghost stories to be all spooky for Halloween. At first glance, the show is a standard true ghost story show, where a person sits down and tells their tale about how they were haunted. This one comes with a clear twist. The stories are told by the real people, and they tell their true story to friends and family members. Rather than going through every episode and picking them apart, I want to bring attention to some of the most frustrating and downright crazy stories this show has to offer. Now, I can't say I don't believe in ghosts, but what I can say is that I am extremely skeptical of this show, and you will see why. Every episode starts off with an intro story, and just so happens that the first episode has one of the craziest ones, of a man named Jason Hawken. Jason starts his episode off by mentioning that he is haunted by a ghost named the Woman in White. Almost like a Digimon, all of these people have their own special ghost. It then goes on to tell a story about when he was young, he witnessed a crazed man kill a woman in a motel parking lot. Covered in blood, this axe-wielding man, after killing his first victim, happened to charge the exact diner that Jason was in. He says that he can remember the adults holding the diner door shut in a panic. The cops then showed up and shot the killer to death. Now, I'd like to assume that these beginning stories are true because in Jason's case, I believe it has a huge play into why he sees a ghost for most of his life. Flash forward a little bit, and Jason was moved into an apartment with his mom and dad. Jason then mentions that all of his neighbors were very standoffish and no one greeted him. He talks about his first sighting as the closet door in his bedroom would open on its own when he would close it, and he also heard voices. I mean, I would say seeing a murder would be pretty traumatizing, and he would probably have to deal with that for the rest of his life. And so he tells his parents. His parents, of course, blow it off and ignore it. And the friends kind of egg him on while they're sitting there listening to him tell the story. They completely, without a doubt, believe him and accept that the spirit is real. And there's no other explanation for it. Guys, so my volleyball is haunted. It speaks sweet nothings to me while I sleep, and it wants me to call it Wilson. I don't even know how I should live. It's a hard life currently, but
Was Tom Hanks there too?
I mean, yeah, he kind of lives in my crawl space, but we don't talk about that.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay.
Dude,
yeah.
That's crazy. I understand. Dude,
No, it makes sense.
very
I get it.
relatable.
Yeah, I totally believe him. At first, I was just in a state of disbelief, but then he started talking about it so much and used so much detail that I just had to believe him. So yeah, I totally believe him. I don't even need proof anymore. He's gotten me to believe just by talking.
I think it's kind of dumb, but I mean, I believe him.
So skipping ahead past an awkward mention that he started sleepwalking, which is actually fairly common for kids, Jason starts to finally get into the meat of the story. The thing we're all waiting for. The Woman in White. She shows up out of the closet one night and starts shaking the doors. Jason doesn't realize that she just wanted a hug. Now, I don't know about you, but the house I grew up in was creepy as hell, and I had a lot of scary dreams due to me being afraid. He starts seeing this ghost, and he says it happens every night and whatnot. Now, honestly, I would think if it happened every night, you would get desensitized to it. Nothing really happens after that. They leave the episode with Jason mentioning that he still sees her. Now, let's tally up Jason's ghost meter. You just gotta, this, and carry the 1, and... Alright, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, you crazy, 10 being, holy hell, that's a ghost. I mean, besides being beaten and seeing a murder, that totally has nothing to do with this feeble mental state, the ghost story seems completely legit. So for his rating, I would give him an 8, would hug ghost. So this one is a doozy, and honestly is probably the craziest episode, next to episode 5, which is about aliens. So this lady named Turtle? This lady named Turtle starts the story off with a banger. So she says that she grew up in upstate New York, and since I live in New York, that intrigued me. Turtles just glosses over the fact that her house was made on an Indian burial site. Yes, an Indian burial site.
Our house was built on Native American burial grounds.
I should add that this Indian burial ground is never brought up again. Something smells fishy already, and I started to find a lot of plot holes. So Turtle brought her sister along with her, and started off by saying her dad would make them roll oranges on the floor. Yes, oranges, for some reason, and she says that they would have to play for hours, or they would get backhanded. Then mentions that they listened to this one song for hours, and then Turtle's sister starts singing the song. Now I'd be fine with it, but it goes on for far too long, like awkwardly long and close up too.
Like a bird that's lost his wing in flight, I'm alone and also blue tonight. Like a piece of driftwood on the sea, may you never be alone like me.
Basically, her dad would bring home these things called strays, which are just strangers without a family, and he would kill them. So Tree and her sister are young, and that makes sense why they couldn't do much at the time, but even her friend brings up that she could have done something, and they kind of give her a dumb reason and keep moving.
Why didn't you guys reach out to people? Why couldn't you tell? Like, what was the dynamics of that town? Why were they afraid of him?
Absolutely.
You couldn't tell anybody. I mean, if you call the police, you might be giving your sisters and brothers death sentences.
This goes on for a while, and the older sister got away, like she got married and had a kid but never called the police even though she knew what was happening. In fact, she even let her son go to his killer grandfather, and they painted as if she had to, but like she didn't even live in the house, so why not call the cops? Turtle was still living in the house, and her older sister decided to take her out camping in secret one night. Turtle had to be home early, but my thought was, why doesn't she just leave? She just went back to the slaughterhouse, and that's crazy. Like, the older sister knew what was going on, but was still like, okay, have fun. Oh, and I should mention that dad was also sacrificing stuff to the devil because he didn't like the weather? As I always say, Satan is like the weatherman of the Bible. Now, when Tree gets back from her camping extravaganza, she is attacked by her dad. Being older, now she runs out of the house and far away, stating that she knew this was the end of her relationship with her dad. Now, for some unknown reason, the grandson still shows up to the house and chills with the grandparents, even though a minute ago he played victim. Now, randomly, the father of Turtle just dies, and her mother tells her that she did it with a pillow, that the voices in the house made me do it. So the grandmother calls up her grandson and tells him that his grandpappy is dead, and the grandson just rushes over and ends up taking ownership of the house for some reason, and living there for some reason, and mentions that he found jars of human remains from the victims and never called the police for some reason. His grandmother doesn't live with him, so why would he not call someone? I don't get it. So basically, this dude starts hearing stuff in the house and calls his aunt, and they gloss over the fact that the nephew says to Turtle, "Aunt Terry, you don't know me, but I am your nephew, and I'm living in your father's home." Now, a few points. The nephew would visit his grandparents when Terry lived there, so how in the hell does she not know him? And also, she had a decent relationship with his mother, so again, why wouldn't she know him? Basically, she shows up and they go into the living room and weird handprints start showing up. That's it. After the story, Turtle starts telling her nephew that she is sorry he owns it and that she can't wait till he calls her one day and they go and burn it down. Which, lucky for her, could be today. I mean, any day, honestly. Like, what is stopping them? Okay, the nephew might not have a place to go to, but clearly he has a decent relationship with his mom and aunt. So why not move in with one of them until he finds a new one? Why stay in the house that happens to have jars of people's teeth when you could just leave? Torch the ghosties right out of the house. I mean, sadly, Satan would have to look for another job as a weatherman, but that's okay, he has a job experience, so he'd be able to bounce back. Tree's ghostly adventures need a rating, so on the same rules, I give her story a 10 out of 10 for would slaughter again. Besides the many plot holes and issues with her father being a feckin' murderer, it was real and very honest and had no overlaying issues whatsoever. Totally not a made-up story that was forged for actors. Totally real. Everything's real. Guys, so my volleyball is haunted. It speaks sweet nothings to me while I sleep, and it wants me to call it Wilson. I don't even know how I should live. It's a hard life currently, but yeah. Hello. What
The funniest part is I was trying so hard not to laugh that entire time you were saying it, and then just
Oh god, it's Wilson.
oh no, it's Wilson.